Do you grow up here?
No,
Not in this city?
No, I grew up in Amsterdam, and when I was 8, my parents took me to Indonesia.
How many years there?
4 years.
4 years.
From 8 to 12.
And after?
After Amsterdam again.
Okay.
But so I basically have lived a lot less than half of my life here in Holland. I lived 10 years in New York and something like 20 years in London.
You were studying, teaching. Did you start office there?
In London, yeah.
In London, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks really good from here.
Yeah.
But
It's
you should polish it again because I don't understand.
That's the inner side, right?
But I don't understand what they're saying that would give glare in the interior. I think that's nonsense because the plane is it's a vertical plane, so it doesn't reach the interior.
It's better to polish and see first.
Yeah.
If there's a problem,
Yeah,
then
yeah.
get deal with it. What do you think about that tower? They want to demolish that tower.
You mean that building?
The tall structure.
I like the tall structure.
Yeah, I want to keep it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually very nice. But your dance thing is here, right? It's the thing next door.
We'll keep the low-rise
Yeah,
building, warehouse, but nothing outside.
Yeah. But the tall thing is
You can go
beautiful.
up there, have a different view, maybe a restaurant. So what's your focus now? Working?
Yeah, in part, but I'm kind of focusing on the second version of the countryside exhibition. This time not in America, but in Doha, in Qatar. So that means it will be more focused on Africa and Asia
Okay.
and the Arab world. And did you see the first one?
Yes.
Yeah?
Small book.
Oh, the small book. Yeah, but in the show we try to kind of zoom in on 20 unique situations in the world.
The show? You mean in the
program,
Yeah.
And so that if you put it all together, you understood what is going on in the countryside. But now it is kind of 4 or 5 years later, so we want to also basically describe how and why it is a good idea to stay in the countryside. And not necessarily that everyone who's there now should stay, but we want to describe a kind of new and interesting countryside that has old elements but also new elements, and why eventually it could be almost nicer to stay there than to stay in big cities. So we're more speculative and more architectural. So that's a big thing.
In the project in China, people talk about countryside a lot, but there's not many good examples.
No, I think that in China there's a kind of problem because the state is also really interested in the countryside, but I think that on the one hand, architects almost always have a kind of a nostalgia component, and the state is incapable of embracing the nostalgia. It's always modernizing it. So it's kind of really a very serious conflict. But I think that that conflict would also benefit from some kind of thinking how you can simply avoid that collision.
In Japan, I was involved in some art project.
Yeah.
They try to use art to change the village. But there are more people coming back, but not the younger generations. They stay in the city.
No, well, but after COVID, there was a lot of young people. But I traveled a lot in Japan last year, and particularly in the countryside. And in a way, the reality of the countryside was very different from what I thought. Because I thought, that the village, young people move away, the village becomes sad, the old people need robots to. But actually, it's a great life that these old people have. Because nobody bothers them. Yeah, they can do exactly what they want. They can still be active, and I think it's much better than being in an old people's home in a kind of city.
Okay.
So I'm trying to discover lots of kind of reasons why you can argue that it's actually very different, but also appealing. You were talking about the countryside.
The countryside.
And I'm also trying to work on institutions of a new kind.
You mean education?
No, not educational. Basically technological. I think whatever is going to happen, there is a lot of technology necessary to make things work, and a lot of new technology. And I'm trying to kind of really connect to that because I find it more interesting than proposed wooden buildings with green, with trees everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm really trying to see and to identify what are genuinely necessary things. The countryside exhibition ended with a fusion reactor, and so I'm trying to find that kind of technology and see if there is a potential connection to architecture.
What do you think of the future of the architecture? Now a lot of young people, they don't really care. They think it's not the hero time anymore.
No, but I think that it's not only that now it's not hero time anymore, but there was never hero time for architecture. And I think that the younger generations are really misreading this their earlier generations, as if they were a group of arrogant egotists who just were kind of imposing kind of nonsense on the world. I basically don't know a kind of single architect in that category. In my generation or in the generation before or after. So I think the seriousness of earlier architects is seriously underestimated kind of right now. You want to talk about Rotterdam, right?
Actually, I'm more curious because a lot of famous architects are from here, from the city.
Yeah.
There are many architects in the city. A lot of new architecture here. Why is that? Like, why? Like, in China, in everywhere in the world, we see a lot of innovative architects from here.
You know that the city was destroyed by the Germans.
Yeah.
So that was very good for architects. Have you ever seen the area of the city that was destroyed by the Germans? Yeah, it's 3 kilometer diameter.
Yes.
And so everything had to be kind of rebuilt. So the city has since the war, even in the middle of the war, kind of passion for building and also kind of feeling that you need to build. So there's no questioning that you need to build. And also they have had kind of for a very long time a kind of very intelligent political kind of arrangement where basically typical social democratic government in the kind of 60s, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and part of the 80s, where the alderman, you know what an alderman, there's a mayor and the people underneath,
Okay.
the person responsible for the arts was always the same person who was responsible for no, for money, for finance.
Art and money.
Yeah, art and money. So that was kind of from the beginning connected. So it meant that kind of, if they wanted something, they were always able to create a kind of montage. And that's why the Architecture Institute is here. So it's a kind of city that had a tradition of not only of building, but also of creating a kind of intelligent system to make buildings happen.
What make you so notable from other part of the world? And you were willing to go global and practice, especially your most very important project in Beijing, the CCTV building.
Well, I think that in my case, it's kind of simply a very early experience. I went to Indonesia, but
When you were
but then Indonesia was just independent, so it was not a colony anymore. It was independent. So I was for the first time in a kind of country, in an Asian country that was in a state of euphoria, but with very few Western people. Yeah. So I went to Boy Scouts, and I was the only Dutch Boy Scout among kind of 60 Indonesian Boy Scouts. So that created a kind of initial passion for Asia and for kind of thinking about Asia and actually also for the kind of politics of Asia. And in that sense, and I'm kind of able to talk about it because I'm also kind of writing a book right now, and in 2000 and 2001, we kind of really realized that when the World Trade Center fell, that the whole idea of the West was kind of seriously weakened, and that basically the initiative and the definition of new things was kind of shifting to other parts of the world, and that made it very interesting for me to try to participate.
So I remember that. You claim you give up the New York and came to work on CCTV. Remember that?
No, it was true. Yeah?
The Ground Zero project looks very normal now. There's nothing compared to the original.
No,
condition.
no. I mean, it's funny because I've written a lot about neoliberalism, but I've never worked, almost never worked with neoliberal clients. Huh? My clients were always kind of cities or countries, or and so there's a kind of big confusion between what I've written or what I've said and what I've done.
Every project would start with the research. That's a really unique. You need to understand the society, the cultural.
Yeah, no, I think research now, the word is a bit overestimated, but we like to think, and of course, by being in America first, by teaching in Harvard,
How many years
I started in '95, so also 30 years. I have a kind of huge privilege of being able to work with literally everybody, or serious intellectuals, or kind of serious enemies, or serious. I've really been in a privileged position of being able to contact almost anyone I wanted to contact. So that makes it also important to, in a certain way, give back.
You also did a Japan project.
Yeah.
The book.
Yeah.
How do you compare Japan contemporary architecture and the Chinese?
They're very different. I mean, I think that you could compare it. I think Japan in their metabolism had a kind of really fantastic generation of creating ideas. And so obviously kind of right now there's a little bit less ideas and more modesty in Japan. I think Chinese architects of the, let's say, the Tiananmen Square architects were also kind of very good architects, but not necessarily exciting for later generations. So now I think it's more exciting for your generation to be different. Did you see in the book we did on the Pearl River Delta? We did it in 2000. We predicted that the Chinese architect would be the most important architect in the world. So I still believe in that prediction.
You're gonna redo the research.
Yeah,
So-
we're revisiting.
Revisiting.
Yeah, and so
After 20
after
years.
10 years, so we can kind of simply interpret the difference. Where are you from in China?
From Beijing.
Beijing.
I do project. I think mainly our project around the delta, the two delta. One is the Shanghai region, the other is Guangdong, Shenzhen, Guangzhou area.
And they don't call it the Pearl River Delta anymore. They have a new name. They don't call it the Pearl River Delta. They now have a kind of even bigger.
粤港澳、大湾区、Hong Kong, Macau.
No, but that is a, but it's gone even beyond that. What I think is kind of interesting about Rotterdam is that even though the buildings are not that special,
There are some special buildings.
yeah, but that the city is kind of very vital,
Yes.
kind of regardless of those special buildings. And it's actually for young people a very wonderful city to live. And I think it's also in Europe one of the few cities where actually many different cultures are coexisting without.
Is that because a lot of young people and a lot of immigrants?
I think it's partly because of immigrants, but also partly because they really experience the disaster, which is kind of very good for your tolerance. Because you know difficult things, you know
Yes.
what it is if everything is on fire, and you don't exaggerate problems. So,
Maybe the density also matters compared to many other European cities. It's more like a lot of high rise.
yeah, but that's recent. Yeah? I think on the contrary, I would say there are so many totally different kind of sections. And that are also cheap. There's a lot of cheap housing. It's kind of in a way one of the cheapest cities in Europe.
Okay.
So I think that makes it more accessible.
What do you think about the future, the globalization? Because I don't know, you're at a really globalization period, and you travel everywhere. You're interested.
Well, yeah, obviously it's diminishing. But I think it's diminishing for all the wrong reasons. And I'm kind of really horrified by the kind of current Western position that is criticizing China, criticizing Russia, criticizing the kind of Arab world. and I'm extremely worried about that. And I don't think that is sustainable. And so I'm kind of writing now in a way. I'm trying to write a book that shows how important context and communication can be. Yeah, and why it is worth, and how important diplomacy can be, because there used to be an art of communicating with your enemies, but if you simply say my enemy is my enemy and there's no communication,
Right.
that is completely stupid.
It's a cultural thing. 'Cause
Yeah.
you can, if you don't agree with each other, but you
Yeah,
should
you can
be
still,
able to
yeah.
talk.
Yeah.
This museum is about the migration, the immigration.
Are you also having an influence on the paintings that he's collecting?
I saw some collection.
But are you also participating in the selection?
I helped them to collect a boat, a
Oh,
boat from Italy, where the refugees came
okay.
from Africa. Also, originally, I did a sculpture on the roof.
Yeah,
It's a seagull.
yeah.
Because I saw seagull bird everywhere. I thought those birds, they don't feel that they're from anywhere. They,
No,
they
no,
just
no,
look
no,
same.
no. True,
They go everywhere
Yeah.
freely.
True.
Yeah. So I think that's a symbolic.
And that's going to be there?
They might move the bird to
Okay.
there.
Okay.
It's gonna be there. I feel really happy to come here. You know the depot project.
Yeah.
I participated in the competition.
Competition.
I lost.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm really happy. This one.
Yeah. No, it's a good. It has
It's
a point.
smaller.
Yeah.
It's
No, but it's also more refined.
We were really influenced by you guys. I was a student with Saha.
You were,
I worked at Yale. She was my professor. And then after graduate, I went to London and worked a little bit.
When were you there?
2003.
Oh yeah, then I was just there a lot less. And you worked in our office.
In London office.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then she started to work in China.
Yeah.
And then she did a lot of Soho residential projects.
Yeah.
She wasn't so happy. She said, I want to do something like a CCTV, public building.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, but that was the point, yeah. Public building.
Ram, what do you think of the meaning of CCTV back then and now in the future? What is?
Is this for Chinese television? And I think the greatest virtue of CCTV is that its identity is unstable. If you move, it becomes a different building, and it can be kind of stable, but can also be very unstable. So, what I think is interesting about what we achieved is that in a country which was not used to that we were able to introduce something that had a different kind of life. But what I think, for me, the beautiful thing of CCTV is that it associates itself with new things, but also with old things. I mean, I have some kind of pictures of CCTV seen from a hotel. And it works, and it also works with, and that is it has so many faces that there's always a kind of face that resonates.
So you just analyze the city village in Guangzhou and Hong Kong in the 90s. And after that, so the China has a dramatic urbanization, and after just like 30 years, but now the pace is slowed down.
Yeah.
So the young generation feel frustrated about the high price of the housing, and
Yeah.
also the young architect, they're losing the chance to build more. But how do you see this transition? Because you observe China in just like it's such a long time. How do you see what happened
well,
now?
I think that not. I was also going to talk about it, not simply because of China, but for the last 10, 12 years, I've become very skeptical about kind of cities or life in cities, and kind of cities become kind of simply bigger, but they remain the same essentially. Bigger, more expensive, more whatever. So I've been trying to kind of really investigate and emphasize the attractiveness of what is not city, and not only in China but everywhere. So, and that is the mission I have kind of right now, is to try to show and try to also design a kind of environment where you can really believe that you could live in cities, but you can also live in totally different conditions from the cities, and that those conditions are more diverse, more varied, and less demanding than kind of urban life.
Some of them are living in very harsh conditions in the urban cities, and they don't see the connection between this kind of very important architecture and their daily life. So, what do you see? What do you think of the role of the architect in contemporary society?
Well, I think that the role, obviously, the role of the architect is definitely not defined by the architect, and actually less and less defined by the architect. And I think that the architect was always dependent on client, and in the kind of modern times, the client of architects were always, in the best cases, kind of more or less socialistic cities or states, so that the architect could kind of really emphasize his own positive concerns. Yeah, you could, but now that relationship with states and with kind of municipal entities and with the public sector is mostly broken. So after that break, the role of the architect is even kind of more random and hard to control.
I think when I was a student, I know this generation, they did a lot of research. They're intellectual. They talk about the social issues, politics.
But that was because there were no
projects,
clients. Yeah,
no clients.
Yeah.
But I thought those activities are really influential to young people. And you also do furniture design, urban planning, and many things other than building design.
Yeah.
I think
Well, I think
you're a
that,
movie director.
yeah, but I think our real contribution was to start AMO in addition to OMA. I mean that was kind of really a step that architects didn't have to always kind of produce more architecture, but
AMO is a research team associated with
inside the
yeah,
office.
inside it.
But how do you see the future of the city? Do you have some kind of idealism in the future of the city, or in your own pictures?
Yeah, so as I was saying, I'm kind of really much more interested kind of right now to in the future of the countryside than the future of the city, because I think that has been a kind of really ignored territory, and I think it's basically very promising, but also very problematic because of climate change. There will be kind of areas that will be more and more difficult, but anyway, that's my kind of genuine interest right now.
Are you going to move to countryside at some point?
I actually have a house in Switzerland in the countryside, and that was definitely kind of part of my small house, but that was definitely part of my experimentation.